All right. Thank you very much, Redemptor Mwikali. This lady is also a very serious iron fist lady. She tackles them and says them as it is. You better want to follow her at at Red Mwix. Sijui mbona una pimp jina Mwikali. Sema tu Mwikali. Red Mwix. I'm going to hand over back to my colleague Obed to steer the conversation. For those who are joining in, thank you so much for making time to be here. We'll also be looking at your communication in the chat section in a few. But for now, Obed, I would love for you to take over. I saw Stella had hinted she wanted to cover something shortly on the issue of economics and the inflation aspect that has been mentioned and boasted about by the current administration. Obed, back to you.
Thank you. We'll allow Stella, but not immediately. Let's. I have on queue. There's Farah, there's Ras, there's Misiko, Juza Nikujuza, and Crazy and Meru. So I would allow, starting with Farah. Um, 3 minutes, Farah. Make your presentation, and then we go to Ras, then Misiko, Juza, Crazy. Then I go back to Stella to give us economic nuggets. Farah.
Thank you, Obed. And I hope other than the fact blessing us. And I'd like to first of all say that I majoritarily agree with everything that our aunt Redemptor said. But there's something that she has said about Kasamwa. Mimi sikubaliani nayo kabisa, because you need to understand the context of everything that happened. You know, everything that happened in that moment where you had Morara was already attacked prior to him speaking. He had such a platform of where he could articulate himself on issues that united all of us. But he decided to speak the language of the oppressor. So let him receive the wrath that he deserves. Anyways, back to what's objective. And I think it's very clear that we do not have an executive that actually is willing to work for the people. And we need to go back to we need to come up with something that unites all of us, that cuts across the board, through the tribal lines, through religious lines, through everything, economic lines, kila kitu, such as the finance bill 2024, whereby kila mtu, everybody had something to and it was personal to everybody. And once we have unity of purpose, this journey becomes very easy, because the leadership we will get will be a reflection of the people we are. If we are people who are honest and integrity is important to ourselves, we will be honest. It all begins with you. You have to be self-critical, because with what we are facing right now, the kind of people who are being fronted as leaders, other than Omtata, the rest, all they are breeding is psychophancy. It's not a leadership of logic where you have accountability and all these things. You cannot tell me not to question you and you want to lead me. For I believe that a leader is one who can also be led. The other thing, we have a very, very, very serious issue that is a national crisis, honestly. Our healthcare sector, people are dying. And it's not a joke, people are actually dying. Na si kwa sababu we do not have the facilities, nor do we have the capabilities to treat ourselves. We do. But just because the executive has decided they want to plunder the healthcare sector as well. Do you know how it remains?
Hello. Hi, fellow Kenyans.
No, no, but
No, that's sorry, Farah. Farah, if you can hear me,
yes.
please just summarize your conversation so that we allow Ras to go. My
Okay.
apologies for that interference. but I've taken care of that.
No problem. Thank you very much. We have a very serious issue with shift sha whatever they're calling it, and people are dying, and it's not a joke because healthcare is no longer attainable to most people. Because for people who require dialysis, they a minimum of 15,000 shillings per week, which translates to 60,000 shillings per month. Let alone the common one, a comfortable paying 60,000 shillings per month for dialysis alone. Do you understand how wicked this is?
Farah, is it me, Eli, or we can't hear Farah?
We lost Farah. Maybe we can proceed with the next speaker
Yeah, let's have Ras. Ras, you have an opportunity to speak. We'll allow Farah to speak when he can
and also
again.
allow
So,
Misiko to
Ras,
request the mic. I think we lost him. There was some strange things happening here.
I've added him back. Ras, your opportunity to speak, please. I give you 3 minutes.
Okay. Good afternoon to everybody. Good afternoon to my friend Mizani. Happy to see you. And it is always a pleasure to come to your space. And thank you for what you're doing. I think I'll reflect on what has happened and what happened more particularly on Friday. And the reason why I'll be very specific to concentrate on what happened on Friday. This country was treated to some kind of skit, some kind of drama, something that was well prepared by this administration and the ODM. Because what happened in the country, there was nothing like public participation. I'm not saying this because I want to go into details of the public participation. We know this was not a public participation. It was just William Ruto and company trying to use the law and the constitution in a manner to try and justify the whole process. This is an abuse of office, and for someone to constitute a public participation in such a hurry, in a very well organized manner, knowing very well they know the results, it's an insult to Kenyans' intelligence. But that's a story I would want to focus on other platforms or sometimes later. But today, I want to call out, I want to condemn with the highest terms possible the attack on one of our brothers in the movement. I want to call him a brother in the movement because I have come to realize the liberation, the revolution, and this is, I'm saying with a lot of respect to some of us here, and most of the speaker, I will not point out names. There are people having a very difficult period accepting some facts. And the facts are, lazima tukue pamoja. Na tusipokuwa pamoja, nimesema time and again, when we tend to incline ourselves as if we are not in solidarity with one of us, you can have a problem with Morara, in terms of opinion, of everything. Kwa sababu kuna watu mimi nakuwa na wakati mgumu sana kuwasikiza na kuwaelewa. And this is the problem that is happening in the whole movement. And that's why you see the likes of Casmuel, the like of other traitors, because that is the name they're supposed, those are their titles, sellouts and everything. We will call out Casmuel as who he is. He's a sellout. There are very many others. This administration has stolen enough. So we know it is capable of shaping opinion. Kuna wale watakuja wa masaji wengine. And that's why at times it's hard to listen to some of these people. No matter how beautiful or how you'll construct your speech, let the speech be towards targeting our enemy. Our enemy ni mmoja, anaitwa William Ruto and the entire administration. And before I react on to that, I stay very emotional with that, because most of them are my friend here. But it has been very difficult to distinguish whether you speak the same language as the revolution or you're speaking the language of the oppressor, because also the oppressor has a group of people, who will sway opinions. Sasa it is just confusing to confuse the followers. Follower anashindwa sasa hapa. There are people who would come feed you a lot of history. Our current problem require our current solution. William Ruto will not be gotten rid of with a lot of history na hapa. We have to, and we need to decide. Kama we uko pale, some of us, unajua, very difficult.
Russ,
I want to talk.
you sound very agitated, and I understand.
I want. Let me just finish here. I want to talk to, because there's something I've been highlighting. I have been in this political space at a very young age, and this politician, kuna wenye tumefanyia kazi, and these boys that were sent to go and do what they did at Bomas, some of them, and I'm saying here, and I've put them in the timelines, are people we have been conversing. And this is to ODM. The ODM party, the era of believing in violence and anarchy, the era of some leaders in this Nairobi calling it their bedroom, is all gone. The politics of Nairobi will be fixed. It will be fixed by good leadership, a leadership that is coming. There is a new constituency that has been born. And that is why William Ruto, Raila Odinga, and the company are very afraid. But if they think they are going to use violence, intimidation, and other forms of other old tactics of intimidating the young people so that they cannot go for those seats, so that young people cannot fix the leadership crisis in Nairobi, wanafaa our dream once again. And that's why there is a very deliberate effort to cripple the IBC. They're not talking about the IBC, despite William Ruto standing on a podium saying sasa anataka ku restructure the IBC. Kenyans, just know that mahali penye tumefika na mahali penye tunaelekea, pesa ambayo imeibiwa ya umma ni mingi sana na ita confuse watu wengi sana. When you see the likes of Samuel Kasmuel pulling a surprise, don't be surprised. So many other surprises are coming on the way. And that's why some of us here on the spaces, there is a deliberate attempt by this administration even to shut X. And I ask, if X today went, if TikTok went, if Instagram went, will you still stand up and be counted? Because very many of us hapa tumejuana kwa space, tumejuana, we are like a family. But if tomorrow something happens that it will not, these spaces will not be there, will you continue being part of the struggle ama utapotelea tu huko? And this has been tested. The likes of Kasmuel got a platform and they got their fame and everything through this platform. But times test. As we go, time will test. And the true revolution people will, because the revolution haijakuja kusik fame, haijakuja kusik hizi vitu zingine zenye you'll try and look, because they are revolution people who even don't want even those leadership nini. They just want something, they just want the nation to work. We just want good people who can occupy our public offices so that our children can have a future that has been stolen by this administration.
Russ, forgive me. I said I could tell you have very clear issues that we need to speak to. However, also we have a limited time. My question is then, how do we point this to a solution so that other than pointing at the weaknesses of what these people have done, because that's going to happen. It's a revolution. Some will be swayed and be bought, others will lose focus. What do we do then as a solution to the problem that we have? Do we get off, other than, do we need to get rid of X spaces so that, people go to the streets? Are the streets the only solution? What are the hard take homes that people need to work with as a practical end and solution to what we are having? And I'll allow you
Thank,
to a minute and a half to do that.
thank you so much. My friend Mizani and Obed, we have been talking about solutions every day. Kila siku. And that's why I'm saying an office has been created. We cannot bring everything to these spaces. Let us just stop for the sake of talking. There is a space. Even if you don't agree, kwa sababu kuna vitu zingine hatutaleta hapa kila time. They are experts in technology. They are experts. They are those who are pursuing the IBC issue. Kuna wale wenye kuna the legal team that has been also petitioning this administration. Umenielewa? In the courts. All those solutions zimekuwa zikiongewa. And there is a platform imepelekwa. Morara akiwa an office was set up for people to bring everything there. Umeelewa? Toka kama uko na hiyo kama uko na hiyo idea, a beautiful idea, take it. And we are not confining people to subscribe to Morara. Other parties, if you feel you can form a party, this is democracy. Umeelewa? But we have agreed we have a common enemy. There are things that I will not be all of them be brought to the spaces. So I have a feeling we have those solutions. Tumekuwa tukiziongea kwa sababu kila mahali tutakuwa tunauliza kuna solution, we know them, we have them, but where do we take, where can we have a close, umenelewa, mahali penye hapwezi kuwa infiltrated na hawa jamaa wakakuja wakasikia, kwa sababu hatuwezi kuwa tunamwaga kila kitu hapa, my friend. So the solution is there. We have been talking part of this solution, and one of the solutions that this administration should hear loud and clear, Kenyans what achieve their goal eventually, whether it will be on the street, whether it will be on technology matters, whether it will be on these other fronts, because solutions zimewekwa. Kuna wenye wako kotini wamesha petition for this administration because it has not respected the rule of law and everything. Those are petitions, but kuna vitu zingine ziko deep rooted, umeelewa, zenye haziwezi mwagwa hapa hivi, zenye haziwezi mwagwa.
So Russ, what I'm hearing, and I'd allow you to, I'd request you to land there to allow others to speak. But what you say, we can't. Yes. No, I like what you're saying, because we can't say everything here because the enemy also is listening, and he'd obviously find a way to counter. But as you suggest, let everybody, if you have political ambition, you have a desire to improve this country, don't do it for fame. Do it because it's a sacrifice that we are making for posterity. And I think I really love that argument. So I'll allow. It's Juza Nikujuza, then Misiko, so that then we come back to Stella to give us economic nuggets, and then we look at how we start thinking of closing the space. But really very good arguments, Ras. And I'd love to engage you more in that conversation, and hopefully we can have something that's quite open. Let us know what is exactly that the steps that have been taken. We've gone to different rooms in terms of, spaces that we are having. Then, we work with us. So I'm going to have Juza Nikujuze, Misiko, and I'll give you strictly, honestly, 3 minutes, because we're also trying to save time and allow others to be able to do other activities. Then have Stella and data activists, and then we look at closing space. So Juza Nikujuze, please take on.
Thank you very much. Yangu inakuanga fupi. I don't even think I'll take the 3 minutes. Thank you very much. I've had a lot in this space, and I'm actually learning a lot from the people in here. Mine is a bit different, and my thinking is Kenya is not short of leaders. We'll always find leaders. Always. We'll always find people who can stand up and want to take responsibility. We're not short of that, even right now. If we decided we don't have a new government, tomorrow all the 1,600 representative seats will be filled. But what are they filling it for? And that's the question that we should ask ourselves going forward. What are we trying to vote for? It's not yes, the leader will come in, but for us, since I don't think we're not voting for leaders, we're voting for a way of living. What way is that? What are we voting for? What do we want? you know and as much as, yes, I agree, Ruto must go, Gashago must go, all of these guys must go. But I'm telling you, there are two kinds of people who become politicians. There are people who think they have good intentions, and very ignorant people. Now, evil people are better than stupid people. Evil people are better than stupid people. And sometimes we try to avoid evil and get stupid, because the stupid doesn't know he is stupid. you know so they come in, they do things that they honestly think are smart. These guys, when they're changing the system, they think they're doing things that are better for us. When they're trying to regulate farmers, they think a regulated mama mboga, it sounds smart. Sounds smart when you say it to someone. You get, but they don't understand that the economy and the country is too complex for one mind to try and control, or even for a few minds. We do very different things every day. 1,600 people, the minds of 1,600 people cannot know, cannot predict, cannot forecast, cannot control or regulate 50 million minds. It's not possible. That's why we need to think bigger than just the 1,600 people. It needs to be the education we do needs to be bigger, and I'm grateful that someone is coming to give us a bit on economics and inflation, because honestly, I think that's one of the kuna one institution hatuja inject vizuri, that is the Kenya Bureau of Statistics. We don't know what input they're giving the government. They could be giving them totally false information, because since we're thinking, the politician is the one on the wrong. No, there's someone giving him data. Now, because we don't care, we don't know who was appointed to these positions. Could be the dumbest people have been appointed there. I don't know. I'm not. I don't know. Could be the smartest also as well. What I'm saying is that there's something bigger than the politician we need to look at. For example, the American system. There's only one question then they need to ask when thinking for law, when thinking about law and systems, is who does it benefit? I would want to ask us, any law, regulation, policy, whatever, is who does it benefit? And they found that the best systems are the ones that are the ones that seek for the growth and development of the family, because the family, through the individual, is the basic unit of society. Any policy that does not make the family better is a bad policy. That's simple as that. And that's what they go on, and that's what they ride on, and that's what their policies are made of. What benefits the household? Simple. So the best educators in these spaces, tafadhali, let's think better than or rather bigger than the representatives we get there, because unfortunately, we will try to solve one problem and create a bigger one. We will change the 1,600 representatives without changing the problem. And that to me is worse, because the frustration will keep growing, and it might end in a very dark place if we don't think seriously about what the bigger issue is aside from these 1,600 guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Juza. Very interesting. That's what actually puts me back to the question I've always had. Are we going to change the physical people, the human beings who get in there, or is it the system that is a problem, that it doesn't matter who you put in there?
Yeah.
As long as that system
we should create,
then going to have a problem.
Thank you. We should create a system where even the worst person on earth, the most evil human being, can't come and manipulate to their benefit. That's what a good system does. A good system doesn't aim for good people. It looks at the worst case scenario. Who is the worst person we can ever have, and tailors the system for that. Because in 100 years, huwezi niambia between year 1 and 100 utapata watu wabaya. Utapata watu wabaya, of course. but the system should be able to withstand such periods, and that is what we should aim for.
Thanks, Jusa. Very good. That's a very clever way. It's a system for dummies, one that actually has looks at the worst human being and finds a way to tame them, and that way everybody else is well taken care of. I've got Misiko 3 minutes, and then we progress. Thank you. Misiko, time to
Uh,
speak.
thank you so much. First, I want to appreciate everyone who have sacrificed his time, being a Sunday, to be in this space so that we can share one or two things together. One, I'll start by saying that we started a movement, and the movement was so clear that we wanted accountability because we realized that our country has lost a lot of resources and our people are suffering, poverty has increased, there's poor system in education, and that's why we all came out and shouted that we wanted accountability. So I believe we have had good people, but our system sometimes have failed. And at the same time, we have had a good system, but our people have failed the system. That's why we are all out here and crying for good leadership. The center has cracked. These are the leaders we all went and elected for. Because I don't think these people that are failing this country, starting with Ruto, are elected people. That we all queued long queues the whole day and voted for these people. But unfortunately, what they're giving out is not what we expected. And therefore, today I want to remind every person who joined the movement to liberate this country from corrupt people, from corrupt leadership, that you are an enemy to your enemy. So always be prepared for anything. That's why the other day we saw what happened at KCC. It was so bad. It's something that we never all expected. But who is our enemy? Our enemy is our enemy. And our enemy is bad governance. That's why we're all standing out and saying that we don't want this government. We want good leadership. We want people who understands Kenya's problem. We want people who understands that we have people who cannot afford simple medication. Why are we complicating things? I feel like we already had a good system, but the people we are putting in the system are the people who are failing us. And therefore, some people are reluctant and waiting for the system to fail on their watch. And that's why young people with goodwill stood up and say no. And that's why we are a movement. We are saying no to bad government. And we are saying that we want good leadership. We want accountability. So every person, everyone with goodwill for this country, can we stand up? Can we stand out? Can we shout? And let these people understand what we really want. Because I feel like some people in this government don't really understand what Kenyans want. Another thing, let's not be diverted with their issue. Like currently, we have SHA, we have Adani, we have Nadiko. The other day, the jet fuel company that was given the tender at JKA. How soon was the tender done? For the first time, someone understand there is a public participation. This is only coming when they want to impeach the deputy. Not even it's not my deputy government. Sorry to say that Gachagua, whatever they call him. That it's when now someone understand. Oh, kumbe kuna kwanga na public participation. So we are in a good move. We are taking a good direction. Let's all come out. And today, I'm confident enough to say that the only language that these people understand is demonstrations. If we say we are on the streets, let's get in the streets, let's shout louder, let them understand that we are tired of them. We want our Kenya back. We want our Kenya of equal distribution of resources back. We want our country back of good leadership. We want our country back where we understand that people need medicine in hospitals and people need to go to school and people need good lifestyle. Thank you so much. I won't take much of your time. Have a blessed Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you, Misiko. Very good articulation of issues there. And the one in the background is very interesting, having a very interesting conversation. We need to nurture them in a good way that they come to a good country that is a country that gives everybody an opportunity to do the right thing. So I'll have Stella talk about the economy, and then I'll have data activist talk about the issue on agriculture. Then from after they have canvass their issue, we'll probably consider starting to close the space because we are past the hour by 4 minutes, and we had hoped that we close the call by 1 p.m. But Stella, that's it. Talk about the economy and have data activists speak about what he's looking at, and then we'll see how we close the space.
Thank you, Obed. So, a few of us have mentioned the issue of inflation, but I'd love to start from the overall economy. So, as we always say, numbers don't lie, and from where I stand, I see more of bad than good numbers. So, the government will come to us and boast of GDP figures, but in essence, where is the growth? So, for example, last week, KNBS published the second quarter GDP figures and highlighted that the Kenyan economy expanded by 4.6% thereabout in the second quarter. That is between April, May, and June of 2024. So, is the growth visible? Not really. You'll hear many Kenyans say that we are growing backwards, they can't feel anything nowadays, there's no money, blah, 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 and all those issues. So this could be because, number one, of the taxes that have been imposed into the economy. Because at the end of the day, GDP will measure the total output of a country and not what we remain with. So myself as a Kenyan, I may have produced 100, but the government took 50% of statutory deductions as well as taxes and levies. So I think we can measure the economy or the progress of the economy using other many things that relate and are closer to the Kenyan citizen as opposed, for example, to the GDP. Second, Diamonds mentioned that inflation dropped to 3.6% in September. When you look at individual commodities, for example, look at fuel prices, the prices of petrol, diesel, and kerosene remained largely unchanged in the month of September. But when you look at the figures, the inflation figures that KNBS published, fuel inflation dropped to a more than 5-year low. So this is not a number that we've seen in recent memory, but for you to get the reason, you look at the numbers and you get to see that the fuel inflation dropped because of a higher comparison period. So in essence, what I'm saying, in September of 2023, fuel prices were at, I think, 211, but they remained unchanged at 188 in the month of September 2024. So you compare the periods and you see that it's just a higher comparison period or a higher figure in the comparison period that led to a decline, but not necessarily a decline in fuel prices. So as I have always said, and I've seen someone mention in the comment section, inflation is a build-up or a cumulative basis figure or a compounded figure. So there's no day that you will come say that inflation is declining because we had a 4.4% in August and now we have a 3.6% in September. It only means or simply means that prices are increasing every other month, but at a lower pace as compared to the other months. So the compounding figure is that the cost of living is still going higher and we can all feel it. So let no one lie to us. Let not the government boast to us that the economy is growing, yet we are the Kenyans and we are the ones who can feel whether the economy is growing. We are the ones who feel whether the cost of living is higher or not, and we don't need to be told. We will feel it by ourselves. So what I'd love to say is that, as I conclude, the country will be calm once people afford or access basic needs without losing an arm or a leg. So I will not be comfortable when the government is working day and night to ensure that medical care is a privilege to me. I will not sleep in peace when I know the government is stealing my future by making education unaffordable. And I will not keep quiet when my food security is at risk, because every day farmers are required to have licenses and other shenanigans that do not make sense at all. So the government has to know that the citizenry will not be okay if they continue to negatively touch on this basic item and social aspects like health and education and even the things that we eat. It's actually very, very wrong. And there's one thing I will say without fear of contradiction. An economy cannot grow on higher taxation. We've not seen an economy that has grown itself through taxation, to be honest. So regardless of what the government will come and say to us, trying to convince us that taxes will build our economy with that tujitegemee shenanigans, it will not grow. At the end of the day, we are the ones who will suffer. Us Kenyans who are on the ground are the ones who will continue to suffer. So if they want our views, this is what we are saying. Stop increasing taxes. It's doing more harm than good. And look at the expenditure side. We can't be living in two separate worlds with our leaders while they use our money to be ignorant and oblivious of the state of the economy or the state of the country. Because we can't have like less than 1%. I don't think even the Kenyan leadership is 1% of Kenyans, and they cannot by all means drag us into dark holes that we have no idea about how we went there. The government alone will not drive us into a default as we watch them, as we look and cheer them on. We will have to talk, and we will talk, and we will propose, and we will participate in all these issues. So I heard someone say that, and I think it's that Caroline Chepto, the lady who spoke during the public participation event. She said that the government is very invested in the impeachment public participation. But when it comes to the issues that concern us, for example, the finance bill, we don't get to see the same energy. So everyone, I believe in this country, even in the rural areas, everyone knows that Gachagua is about to be impeached. But when we were doing the public participation on the finance bill, people were asking, na hii finance bill ni nini? Ni Ruto alikuja nayo? Because they've never heard of it. We didn't see the same energy with public participation notices being put between newspapers. For the impeachment we saw public participation notices on the newspaper so that everyone will see and everyone will know. But when it comes to the issues that touch on us, the issues that affect us very directly, the government will not put in the same energy. So basically, this has to stop. And as for me and my house, I will not trust this government that gambles with the lives of its citizens. Thank you, Obeds.
Thank you, Stella. As you and your house, you've decided, hapana. I've never had you on fire like you are today. We blame some people here. They made you an activist. Data activist, I give you time to be able to canvass your issue on agriculture, and then we see how we take the space home.
Thank you, Obed. And there's a speaker who would tell Stella, usikunywe maji, keep the fire burning just like that. That's the kind of fire that we need. We were told we are not angry enough. We need to get angry enough. And I want to speak to matters, food security, food safety. And as Stella has talked about inflation. I want to talk a bit about food inflation, because yes, the inflation figure is a compounded figure, but food inflation is the highest in that compounded figure, because there's food inflation and there is also fuel inflation. And what that means is that people can't afford food. The prices are increasing. Now to speak a bit to why that is. Now, as you all know, there are a number of bills that are currently in play, which have been proposed. And let me speak to food security and why I think we're in a situation where we are food insecure, because that has been engineered by certain people. So for any country to have food security, there are certain things that need to happen. So we have production and consumption. So what happens, there are three scenarios. If production is higher than consumption, then the surplus can be exported, which means we have foreign exchange as a result. When production is equal to consumption, it means we don't need to import and we have nothing to export, but we have food sufficiency. We can feed our people. The current situation we have is where production is lower than consumption, which means we have to import to take care of the supply of the deficit. I believe that is engineered. Why? Because in countries like our neighbors, Uganda and Tanzania, the cereal import dependency ratio is 10%. What is less than 10%? What that means is that they import less than 10% of their cereal. They produce everything else. Everything else is produced locally. There is no reason Kenya is not producing enough, and it brings a scenario which I call politics of poverty, because that is what this country is doing. They're playing the politics of poverty. And why do I say that? I say that because, as Juza Nikujuza said, talked about KNBS and the statistics. The statistics are there. Their statistics on poverty are there. And on food poverty, this is what they say. We have 15 million food poor people in this country. 15 million. There's a report, the Kenya Poverty Report 2021 by KNBS. It's there, it's on their website. And yet, the country decides to tax bread. So, why would they do that? And yet they have these statistics. The data is there. But these guys don't care. They don't care. Now, what is happening with the bills is not unique to Kenya alone. Let me give you some stats. The growth in cropland area from 2001 to 2022 was a result of area expansion in Africa of 73 million hectares, an expansion of. In South America of 28 million hectares, and Southeastern Asia of 22 million hectares, which was partially offset by contractions in North America of negative 26 million hectares, Eastern Europe, negative 8 million hectares, and Southern Europe of negative 6 million hectares. Ladies and gentlemen, these guys are reducing their cropland, and they are coming here. Africa is feeding the world, yet Africa cannot feed herself. What's wrong with that picture? Something is very wrong with that picture. We need to be able to feed ourselves. Even Kenya can feed herself. I'll give you another scenario. During the Finance Bill 2024, anyone who voted yes any MP who voted yes could not go back to their constituency. There was a problem. And yet they had been paid something for saying yes. So there's a certain MP who decided, since these guys won't allow me to go, he bought bales of unga and went with them to his constituency and gave unga to his constituents. Politics of poverty, ladies and gentlemen, at play. And if these bills pass, we are doomed. We are doomed because every single thing in those bills, they're saying that we need licenses to be able to plant this, that, the other, that we have to use GMO, pesticides. Ladies and gentlemen, pesticides. When one is spraying a pesticide, you have to put on gloves, you have to put on a face mask, you have to put all these kinds of gear. And yet, that is the food that we are going to consume. The pesticides that we use in this country are banned in Europe. They are banned. The government knows it, and yet they do not care. Before I came to this space this morning, I saw a quote from Vladimir Putin, and he says that Africa is a graveyard, and this is why he said so. He said Africans go to foreign countries to get an education. When you need medical attention, you go to foreign countries. When you need to buy a vehicle or whatever, you will get it from another country. But when you come from that country, you will be buried in your motherland. Is he wrong, ladies and gentlemen? Is he wrong? He is not. The change that we need to do starts with us. There's a movement called Kilimo cha Haki. I urge you guys to join. I'll share the link with Obed and Eli. Please join us. Help us fight these bills. Help us fight these bills because you're fighting for your future. You're fighting for the future of your children. Ladies and gentlemen, there isn't a single profession that I know that is required 3 times a day other than a farmer, because you require him for breakfast, lunch, and supper. No other profession. These guys want to take that away from you. Help us not let them do that. Thank you. Back to you, Eli.
Thank you, data activist. We've had a long. I think we've done two from 10, about almost 3.5 hours. So I guess we taking this home now. We should be finalizing this. But so I'd have Ila, I'd take it back to you. I guess we don't have much. There's so much that has been said, and there's a lot that's clear that we have to do a lot more. And I think it is important. And I think I need to say this because Chingeno, Cheluita, I like what you say. Our conversations are very predictable, and we tend to deal with personalities rather than the issues. And we need to change that. And it is important that we continue sticking to the principle. It is what is at the core. It is what that is not taken care of that we're dealing with, not the personalities around it. Because I think then we tend to lose the whole essence of whatever it is that we're trying to change. So I give Daktari, she's come up here, Daktari Onyango, I give you a minute to give your final remarks. That goes for 254 for life as well, the real Joe, and that in that order. So, Daktari, I give you a minute to make your final remarks. Daktari, can't hear you. So, okay, go on.
Hello.
We didn't hear you at any point. Now we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you so much. Maybe just to, I have nothing much to tell you because the data analyst has already told you about Kilimo cha Haki, which is the initiative we are running to be able to rally Kenyan farmers and all Kenyans who are supporting farmers for us to be able to against the fight for our food sovereignty. You've heard about the punitive agriculture bills that have been in Parliament that are calculated to take away our food sovereignty. We talk about seeds and nuts, oil. Now there is the Horticultural Crops Authority bill. And we have been all out there talking about and rallying farmers against this. So the Kilimo cha Haki initiative, you will be able to learn more about what we are doing. Next week we're planning to petition Parliament and the Senate and the Ministry of Agriculture for immediate withdrawal of these bills. And we are working with a team of lawyers right now. Actually, we were supposed to do it on Friday, but because of the ongoing politics of impeachment and the political heat thereof, the police advised us to be able to postpone it until Parliament is through with the impeachment hearing. So you'll be seeing much about what we're doing in Kilimo cha Haki. And we also extend an invitation to all Kenyans, farmers, friends of farmers, professionals supporting farmers, and just anyone. If you care about what you eat, then Kilimo cha Haki is the place for you to be. We had a press conference last week where we shared a lot with the media, and the content is all out there. If you've not come across it, please just check it out so that you can be able to educate yourself about what is happening around our food and seed sovereignty. Thank you so much, data analysts, for bringing that to their attention. I think we will interact more about those topics in the future. Thank you and good day.
Thank you, Daktari. That was very good. 254 for life, I give you a minute.
Thank you, Obeds, for the mic. Thank you, Eli, for the space. Mizani 254. Just as I round off, I'd like to thank all the speakers. in their capacity. I think from my count, I've seen over 120 people on the space. So in my closing remarks, I think I'd want to be a bit optimistic because Stella has quite adequately put some facts on the table that we cannot ignore. Data activist has done the same as well. Also hearing from people like Redemptor, where we've shared spaces before, it's always enlightening to see Kenyans of wisdom, Kenyans of goodwill, Kenyans of thought and being smart about how this country should be run. So my parting shot would be, as we all retreat to the weekend and set forth in the coming week, in yourself as a Kenyan, endeavor to always be an active citizen. There's nothing more important than being active. There's nothing more important than having a Kenya that we all can coexist together peacefully, and also that we can all thrive equally with fair opportunity to all, regardless of which corner of the country you come from. So I encourage you all, continue with the conversations, always canvass everything you hear. I always insist that you should question everything that comes from government, because at this point, there's nothing to trust but trust yourself and trust your interest of being an active citizen for this country. So I thank you all for the time, the audience, and let's continue having the conversation, whether it be on Mizani 254 or in other spaces. Thank you so much for your wisdom, and thank you so much for being Kenyan. Karibuni sana and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, 254 for life. Before I allow Redemptor to speak, we have an engagement we're looking at having in the year 2025, God willing, March, the month of March. We're looking at having a conference, one that's a bit not your normal, ordinary kind of conference, but kind of like an open X space. And it will be interesting for those who have an interest. We'll have Eli give you the email addresses to show your interest on. The concept paper is done. We'll be able to share it with those who are interested, and we'd like to welcome as many of us to contribute, because we are plugging into what is already going on in the country. There's a demand that we walk the talk. And I think once we are able to engage in such a conversation, be able to put a face to, the names that you see, we can be able to have a pointed approach towards how this country should be run without overdoing it. Redemptor, please give you a minute to give your concluding remarks.
Yeah, I would love to participate in the conference, and I am going to become very unpopular because I'm realizing sometimes we are doing things with emotions, and if you don't speak the language that people want, then you become the enemy. My word on Kenyans is we are in this mess because of a sweet talking president. That's why we are in this mess, and we must avoid judging leadership based on speeches. Again, I will say, sometimes I speak as a mother, so when I have compassion for a young person who has been exploited, because I've seen this happen even with activists. They see you, they see your courage, they take you, they use you, and then they throw you away. So when I speak these things, people want all of us to cry. In fact, I was in a world where people were practically crying. And so when sisi ukishazeka, you cry and the tears go inside. You don't cry outside. You go to the field. I think one of the most moving moments for me was when I saw Morara in the docks and I saw Mother Karua. I think for me, that just concluded just how many people are for the movement. But because they're not speaking the language the young people want to hear, everyone becomes the enemy. So I think I'm the last one standing, because if you notice, that generation left spaces because people want to come and say, burn it down, burn, let's go and burn. In fact, there's one lady who comes and advocates for silence. And I always tell people, are you sure she's going to be on the streets with you? So for me, it's still upholding the rule of law. It is still not doing things that are not constitutional. And it is to leave the young people to the conviction and to always tell them self-preservation is very important, even as you step out to liberate your country. Thank you, Mizani and Obed, for the work you've done since all this started. There's the popular way of doing things where you have 10,000 people listening, and then there's the real authentic conversations that are happening. And your space has been one of those very authentic conversations. So I congratulate you for persevering even when the crowds are going with the the popular voices. Asanteni.
Thank you, Redemptor. We actually did spaces way before the movement came, and we are glad that we are stuck. And thank you for that compliment because it means a lot to us. That said, the real Joe, I give you your minute to make your final remarks.
Thank you, Obeds. Actually, I'm with Redemptor on what she just said. I think we still have this mentality of psychophancy within us in a way that we easily brand people traitors and things like that. Whenever someone just does something that is not to your liking, you brand them traitors. It has become very easy in this movement. I've seen that. But let me come back to give my final remarks on the topic of the day. For me, I will just repeat that we have serious structural issues. That's why we have the center cracking. And these structural issues will only be able to sort them out if we build institutions rather than people. We need to have the institution of presidency and focus on that institution, the institution of parliament and the role of parliament. So whoever comes in, despite whoever it comes into those institutions, their roles remain as stipulated in our constitution. That is how we are going to fix some of the messes that we have in this country. We are focusing so much on the individuals, on the William Rutos, on the Gashagwas and all that, instead of focusing on the institutions themselves. I will land by saying, when your enemies are fighting, don't let them fight, let them kill each other. You don't care. But the impeachment of a deputy president is a democratic process. Let him be impeached. Maybe we are a step into getting an impeached president. We've seen an annulled elections. Let us see an impeached deputy president and experience that. Let us see that. If we see that, maybe we will have an impeached president in future. Thank you very much, Obeds.
Thank you, real Joe. That day will come hopefully one day, and maybe they can't hold office anymore. Until then, let's see how this pans out. Wendy, how could I have forgotten you? Your minute.
Hi Obeds, and thank you for the mic. Kuna mhenga aliyesema kwamba siasa mbaya maisha mbaya. And so I want to tell all of you that Kenya is our business na amkeni tupigania Kenya. Our enemy is the political class who refuse to listen. And I want you to know that we are not begging. We are demanding for what is rightfully ours. And as I land, I want all of us to think of that. Thanks.
Oh, Henga alizaliwa 1924, left us a few years ago. We will make sure that we remember bad politics and the country. What I've come to accept is that if your sources of wealth are not properly acquired, you tend to have people who do not know how to take over after you leave. And I would like to say this, that the Standard Group has been a mess to some people, and I think there's a conversation we should have had about this. Employees have not been paid in good time and stuff like that, and people are suffering. And mental health issues, as much as we don't want to talk about them, is something very critical. I was in a conversation on Friday where we had the KMPDU, talking about the relationship between climate issues and mental health. I think that was an eye opener. So I hope that we're gonna have these conversations that are critical and honest with each other. That said, Eli, this country we love, this Kenya that we want to see, is a possibility. But we must first diagnose the correct problem. And I think for me, there's a system and structural problem followed by a cultural issue on how we select our leadership and who becomes in charge of government and other things. Do you also need to reevaluate ourselves? There's a need for introspection. When you look through this revolution or whatever has been the Renaissance, as I call it, for a long time, you tend to realize we are looking for a savior. We are looking for a hero. We don't all want to participate fully. We want somebody to bring themselves out there so that we support them. The Messiah seeing and thought process is what is the biggest problem. Because if we keep thinking that way and nobody wants to participate actively and in person and ensure that maybe I'm not able to go to the street, but what do I contribute to this conversation that makes a difference? Because we are looking for Morara to go out there. Chairs have been thrown at him, and now people are saying stuff about them. Caswell has had issues. Why are we always throwing darts at people, and we don't want to be the ones who are standing and come and say, then I be the solution? The hero in the ring is what everybody is asking for. But that's not what we want as a country, because that's why we are precisely here. We need all of us hands on deck. And that's what the Constitution keeps saying. Article 3, go out there and defend the Constitution. Let's defend and ask for accountable leadership. Not as one, not as me, not for fame, but because that's the right thing to do. The day Kenya is governed properly, we do not have to have a lot of Kenyans leaving our country to go to other countries to live and struggle and be treated badly. Look at people in Lebanon. Kenyans in Lebanon, your government is doing nothing. It is so sad and bad. Why would we have our people go to the Middle East to suffer in the hands of people who treat them like dogs because we can't get it together at home? That said, let's all participate actively in whichever way that we can to make that difference, that positive change that we all aspire for. If your business is to carry a small stone to be able to put it somewhere to get somebody else to add a bigger stone to make sure, let's all do that. Leta mawe yako ndogo, bebe mchanga yako, kila mtu tujenge nchi yetu ikue ile nchi tunataka. But ukisema unangoja watu wajenge ati wewe ukuje kuishi, it can't happen. And I hope and pray that this happens within our lifetime, because what's going on, the impeachment and the fight within the political class and the nonsense you saw on Friday about public participation, where the opposition and the government trying to, beat people in a certain way, looking at bloggers saying things are very stupid. I mean, Rigathi has done as many sins as the president, but why do you want to sacrifice Rigathi and leave the president? So we have much more to do, but let's do it within the rule of law, within what is specific, so that we don't do the same things these people we want fighting are doing. And that way, there will be people who believe and trust and aspire to do things within the rule of law. I can say a lot of things. Mizani, you know my sentiments. It's hard to preach to the choir. I will repeat this until we see that change that we want to see. But thank you so much for taking your time to be here. It's been a wonderful engagement. I love the fact that all Kenyans are plugged in. We must change this country piece by piece, part by part, and eventually, when our children will look back, they'll say, at least our parents knew what they were doing. That will be a very proud moment, whether you're here or not. And remember, a revolution starts with people. Some will not enjoy it, but that's the beauty of life, because even what we have today, some of us didn't do anything about it, but we're enjoying it nonetheless. Thank you very much. Mizani.
Thank you very much, Obed. And what a Sunday schooling. I wish we had started with the prayers, but clearly we still say them either way. I am very impressed by the fact that Kenyans do care about their country, and Kenyans no longer ride on other people's pain. We actually understand our own pain, and that in itself should direct the way we want to fix this country. You know, I heard Wendy speak about Muhenga. Let me see if I Muhenga saying, which says in Swahili, tusipoziba ufa tutajenga ukuta. And that's why we are concerned when we have cracks at the center. The structure, fidelity has been compromised. And to that extent, it is paramount of you and I to come back and look at this structure and say, where did we go wrong? Can this be fixed? Or is it beyond fixing? I want to be as optimistic as my good friend 254 and say it's not all lost. And that's why we still have good soldiers who are fighting for this country. You can underestimate the power of a termite, but wait until that nest comes and takes control of your home. It can bring down a whole structure. So the termites that are Kenyans, we don't want to bring down the structure that is Kenya. We want to bring out the structure that is impunity. And that has to be our clarion call this Sunday. I have seen and I recognize your responses and chats in the chat section. The Patriot says, that is Patriot 254. Let us face the truth. the solutions we have been proposing might not work until we drain the swamp. The best option we have is to remove must go forcefully. Wallace says this isn't a place where you can't be infiltrated as long as Kenyans ever seem to have a price. There are those who are faithful as long as 10M has not been put on the table for them to sell out. So think of strategies that cannot be sabotaged easily. And Ndiritu says the politicians who propose change and regulations in parliament must be interviewed for a week in public by all media stations before bringing the amendment in parliament. I believe this is us trying to put those proposals into a litmus paper and find out will it turn blue or red. I see your hand is up, Obeds. Is there something I'm missing out you want to put my attention? I guess not. All right. So as we look at the week that is coming, I must say it's going to be a tough one. We expect the twisting tunes of the political class to take over. But then again, we still remain focused on the issues that are pressing to all of us. Today, I received a number of messages, interestingly enough, that people are actually already struggling with the issue of treatment. I saw one text here that told me, Eli, as we speak today, my mother hasn't been able to access medication because she's not transferred to SHIF and she has to pay cash. That means we have to pay more than we can afford. So to some extent, you have to choose between what you eat or if you actually go for that medication. Those are tough choices that Kenyans have to make. But then again, we have a lot of millions and billions of shillings to steal to make a system. You can't just administrate at a school. I mean, you can't just administrate a school to excellence. It requires nurturing a culture where every individual feels valued, supported, and strengths focused to contribute their best. That takes effective leadership. That is by Dr. Brad Johnson. That's all we had for you this morning and afternoon. We do hope you have yourselves a great week ahead. And thank you so much for always making time to be here on Mizani 254, where the scales of balance are restored and meaningful conversations thrive. We can't wait to host you in the 2025 Mizani 254 Leadership Driven Conference. And in this case, we are saying purpose-led or purpose-driven leadership. What do you understand by that term? And what do you foresee when you talk about leadership? We can't wait to have you. Email us